Morning, everyone. Just last 10-5 candlesticks replotting moved our 10 and 5 ergs upwards. We're still within a 10-point range right near the top of the morning, though our 10s and 5s are angled up. A and B bias are angled down. So don't have a 10-5 or a setup 10 at the moment. We did have a pullback of 2.25 points from our recent high, and in the shorter term, maybe looking for a possible 3B coming down. Coming down towards bottom of our recent point of resistance. Nice E coming down, nothing to pair with that. Again, the 10-5 ergs are angled up without the A and B bias, and not quite a 3B downwards. We need 60-degree angle on the bias, 45-degree angle on the ergs. Starting to push back up again.
And 1EK starting with the F, and look for the E backed off. We have the D, 1 starting to fade a bit, as well as the F flashing in and out here. Sorry, I said 1, but the volumes. 1s are starting to turn now. 1D, and that's about it here.
D backed off.
B coming into 60 degrees. 3s. Bottom one certainly 40 degrees, 45 degrees, but top one might be slightly off.
Top and the 10 ergs are slightly turning from where they were a moment ago. Gain at the top, trying to break through the top in a shorter consolidation zone. See indication of possible a move up or a move down. Move up with those 10 and 5 ergs, as nice as they are, but smaller, and the 1 ergs angling up.
Let's see what happens with the 1s. 1D, watch that F, watch for another component to pair in with that. Again, the 3B very close downward as well. The A and C are also angled down.
The volume tick thinking of turning. EK coming in quickly. EKF. 1 EK. K backed off. Getting these little surges.
F in the 1s. Even an L attack. 1DE.
Upwards.
F starting to come in upward. 1DEF. No arrow at the moment.
Broke through to a new high.
One DF. E coming back in again. Wow. Haven't had any arrows since almost 950, it looks like.
Been in this
1DE, F coming back again.
consolidation zone.
Yeah.
The market's trending to the side.
1D tick F.
B weakening. A weakening.
1D tick F. There's an arrow. Just come in there. And just a 1 tick target.
1,200 contracts at 85. So move up here that could diminish. We could shoot higher quickly. Bigger scale. We are getting close to the 2,100 of the actual S&P. Could make a run for that here this morning.
And we're not going to move our stop from 5 ticks. It is going to stay that even if we were on a point of support on that level there. It filled that one tick there.
Tapping through that to the 85. Looks like we're pushing higher. B bias has started to angle up. Now if a 10.5 was support of that B.
You see a bit of a pullback here. We may be seeing that certainly demonstrated more so in the 144 chart. A little bit of pullback here in the 317 as well. Tick starting to turn down, E angling down.
And as someone's pointed out, thank you, we on that last push up we have moved through a 10-point range. So we can look for now 45-degree angle on the biases as well as the ergodics.
Volumes ticks FE downward here, right against this trend line. Trying to look for a white arrow here on our 10.5 after going sideways 144 or 317 tick price chart.
We did pull back 2 points from that recent high.
Mm-hmm.
Come almost all the way back up to it again. Of course, Friday afternoon we did hit, looks like 88.25, maybe 88.50.
Yeah. See the ones starting to turn here. Gonna have just a little bit more observation here, particularly on our scalps. See the weight of things as we come up against, in this case, a trend line resistance if we're looking at something downward. Whether or not to consider that, even though there might be a strong setup, or more sort of lean toward that as being a pullback and just wait for, in this case, a white arrow for a 10.5. Also, pay more particular attention to how far the market has moved while still looking for an arrow. We've talked a lot about it moving a point or a point and a tick, and depending on even the range or even the tightness of the moment, we may even lessen that on a instance to instance basis. So we'll discuss all of that, and it may impact on trades that may ultimately be won, and it also may impact on trades that ultimately would have lost as well. So whole idea is to pay more attention to some of these stronger points of resistance. Here we have a 3D red arrow there. 83.75. I was only able to get 83.50 on that one, Greg. We do have ourselves moving through that 3-minute trend line at the moment, even the 5-minute on a sideways basis. We do have that 83.50 as a point of support. Also resistance going down. We have our ones, our volumes perhaps turning down here as well.
Need to be careful here on this one. We still have nice threes, even 3-1 with a D. Just wanted to make sure this E and F angle down. We've got to get through this 83.50 point of resistance.
It's just the more immediate pressure. We do have the 10 and the 5 underneath that in the opposite direction. They're starting to curve, flatten slightly. You need to see how these smaller charts play out. In terms of the tick, still angled down. Volumes look like they're starting to
nice E and F coming in stronger.
Come down here. So let's see if this begins to move down. Move to tick through that 83.50. You see 82.50 is about a point of resistance, it looks like, as well. Below that, obviously, the 82, 81.75. Still nice threes, still nice ones. D, E, F, tick. Now, I had ideally tried to get the 83.75, wasn't able to, so you could even look at targeting 3 ticks, which would be 1 point at that 83.75 entry. We also see that 82.50 is a point of some resistance. So
yep, even bigger is 82, 81.75.
as we come down here, 82.75 is a bit of resistance. I may even look to grab the 2 ticks. It's taking a little bit of time here. Still have strong 3s and 1s though. Looks like our C has come into angle downward as well. D starting to soften, but that E continues to angle down nicely. And then this 82.75 still is a point of resistance. This 2 ticks opens up again. I actually will look to lock that in. Lost that D bias, still have the C in agreement. 3-1, we've got the tick and the volume turning slightly here.
Came back up to the trend line, tick trend line. E has moved up to green here temporarily with the volumes and ticks turning up. Need to wait for them to start to turn back down for another cycle.
Or at least to get through the early part of the turn on both the volumes and the ticks. Strength of that really is in the early part of the turn. Here it is coming right back down again. Let's see if we can attack the 82.75 again. That D has come back into positive, well, an angle downward, but positive for our particular 3-1.
Nice E spiking down.
And again, if this opens up at 83, you may want to take that, or even just set it there, given that this has been a point of resistance. It could move down through this level quickly. I haven't taken that or looked to take that 83 yet. The longer we hover here, there we are tapping on the 82.75 and filled the 1 point there.
Very nice. B bias has come back up even stronger. Well, it was strong before. It's come into the green now. It's weakened, but it's deeper in the green. Close to 10B, depending on that top 10 erg. Lower 5s are cresting. We still have our 3s down. 1s are down near the bottom of their cycle. Let's see if the 81.75 turns out to be a bounce point. We are at a point and a tick, and of course, just a reminder, different people have different targets. Some people just target a point a day, in which case you can be done for the day. Always good to lock in your profit when you hit your target. Some people are more conservative, some more aggressive.
5 minute flashing red here.
We're at this bounce spot.
We've come off our 3-1, 3C, 3D here.
EK upwards starting to emerge, not fully there. 1's turning, D starting to turn up. Bounced off this 81.75 by a point. No signals, no setup. Almost a 10B. The top 10 erg is just flickering in and out. So we'll see how this transpires, if we do push right back up to the high, or if we maybe come down further with the 3s. One volume EK, K just backed off.
Or volume tick EK. You meant volume tick E.
Yes,
one's
sorry.
turning. We have our 10B. If we see there's a white arrow in our 144 at the 83. And just target 85.50 was our high. Target 2 points, but look to lock in 1 point at 84. We have a minute and 20 seconds until our 10s and 5s replot. We still have the 10B here with our smaller charts beginning to turn upward underneath this. F moving into green. Nice angle up on the E. Again, I'll give it a second or two if it moves through the 84 before locking that in. 84 is a minor point of resistance. And you could even look to target 3 ticks ahead of that minor point of resistance. Did touch on it there. It opens up at the 3 ticks. I may just look to lock that in as long as we still have the 10B.
The top 10 erg is getting a little weak. The bottom one's looking to angle up higher.
Just locked in the 3 ticks. It actually came back and took me out at the 3 ticks there. As soon as it opened up at 3 ticks, actually could have got a point there. Looks like, oh no, touched on the point at 84, sorry.
Being at this point of resistance, we can stop here, bounce back down, or push through. If we push through, expect it to go towards the high. For a bigger trade, we like to see a pull. Actually, we don't. That B bias, we've lost that. So
I was
no
just
longer.
going to say we just lost that B bias at the 10. Well, I'm not sure if it was at the 1020 replot. We
do have the one VE tick. Watch
one
that
volume
F.
tick E. We need the F as well.
E is weakening temporarily.
Top three starting to curve, but we may see that angle down again. We have a B bias down and A bias down, so we might be coming bigger picture into a continuation of a base 3 and even a base 5 downward. Once these smaller charts dissipate, again, this 84 was a point of resistance, which is why I locked in 83, the 3 ticks just ahead of that. Didn't actually break through, but there's still some pressure in the ones and the volumes, and that may eventually push this through here up against the trend line on the 3-minute that's now forming downward. And in fact, as these smaller charts begin to turn, ticks beginning, we do still have the 3s, though it's flashing. It's coming back to 45 degrees for a 3B downward. Oh, look at that E spike again here, Greg. This may push up another little bit here.
It is at the point of resistance, and it's like the battering ram example we oftentimes give. Trying to get through the glass ceiling, the battering ram.
84 on the left side of the 317 tick chart. You can see that's the point of resistance then, as well, just before 10 a.m. our session time start. So could be a bounce spot. Again, seeing the ticks starting to soften. Saw that E dissipate. Do have the 3B, so if there is a red arrow on the 144 or the 317 price chart, those 5s both turning red as well, flashing red.
Top 3 weakening a little on the tick as well.
It is there, yeah. Yeah, you need to watch for that. As it's down at 83.25, it's in good angle.
E is coming down nice though to support that. A move down. D just went flat.
3B still there though.
A is nice, supporting a possible 3B.
One's volume still up. Slight D bias, agreeable to that.
Top 3 going flat now.
Yeah, as we tick to the top of this range, it flattens, and as we tick to the bottom, it comes back in. But we have one volume F, D. If there's a white arrow, we have a strong resistance here at 84, but the pressure seems to be here. If there's a white arrow for a scalp, and the F backed off. We did get an arrow. Again, I'm not sure if that arrow was there at the time with the F spiking.
I took my eye off the chart for a moment there.
I'm going to assume that it was in there, just with that pressure coming in upward. Just filled that tick there. With that arrow coming in, I think it was bang, bang, and it was still able to get the same entry spot as where the arrow came in on the very next candlestick, the 84.25, and it just filled there at the 84.50. Spiking here a little bit further now. One's D threes have gone now conflicted, as is the fives. Well, fives have both gone red now. 1D, 1E, F, starting to come in. The E backed off, pressed another 1 or 2 ticks here. Looks like it's going to move toward this 85.25, 85.50. Just a reminder, in bigger picture right at the moment, we ever since about 9:45 even, it looks like it's been in a tight range, 81.75 to 85.50. So 3 3/4 point range we've been in almost 45 minutes of time, half an hour almost of session time. So even though we do have a 10-point range, that is still very tight.
Pressing up to the top, we are 9 points away from the 2100. Nice ones angled up. Have nothing to pair with the 10s. 10s are very close to turning. They're cresting at the top. Given that we are 9 points or so away from the S&P 2100, we've oftentimes seen that as a magnet. Market make a move up towards there. So sometimes that comes through as a bit of an emotional push. We're starting to see a 1D move in. It needs some more components for a scalp, pushing up to the high of our morning, 85.50. Threes aren't quite there to pair with it, with the ones. The threes were angled up a little more, we'd have a 3-1. Had some arrows on the 144, but we can't take those given that now we have the 1D. E was there momentarily, but backed off, pushing the 85.50. Pushing through the 85.50. There's no arrows. The top one's starting to flatten, actually, Darren. 1E, not a scalp. We've already moved up 4 points from our recent low.
I'd like to see maybe a bit of pullback at this point, having moved through that 85.50.
If a setup were to come in.
If a setup were to come in. And the 10s are still upward. It looks like our 3s have turned, and that could be the culprit. Of course, the 1s continue to press up, but that could have been the culprit here, coming in behind the 1s that kept us pushing upward here from that, essentially that 82 low, up 4 points now. On that move, we did have our last tick move for a tick back there in and around 84 here. It is still pressing. Starting to come into the base 3, but we will need to see a pullback here.
I think we're headed to the 2100 here, Darren.
Well, certainly looking like we're heading toward the 88 level.
Market's just below the 2093 now. The S&P.
And at the moment, you can see the E and the F and the D even. There's just no let up in the bias. Just keeps pressing, and the bias is driving this until at some point it's going to collapse and move down. Someone's saying there's arrows in the 144. Yes, but no pullback. We were looking for a pullback, and much of the time there, even though there were ones until recently, there was just not enough pairing for a scalp consideration. So our 10 minute has gone a little bit flat here as well in that 10:30 time frame. Bottom 3 has gone a bit flat. We do have one volume F, D, K. If there is a, well, there was an arrow, and I just see if we can still get that arrow. Tried to get the 85.25, but it already had moved down, and I'll just remove that option at 85. The arrow came in at 85. Well, that was interesting. It came in at 85 on the thing, but when I clicked on my ladder, 85.50, and so there might have been a little bit of lag there in that moment on the charts, but it must have been an arrow come in, and then meanwhile the ladder had pulled back a bit, which allowed me to be able to try to get the 85.50, which didn't do, and then I wasn't able to get the 85.25 either.
Market's still holding here. Still one volume tick DE.
Well, we've got 10 minutes that are conflicted here right at the moment now, so that might have happened in this last bit of a push down, so we're going to have to hold off on our scalps here at the moment. That was, again, just an interesting one where just a fraction late on getting in that open spot, and it just filled up. But that's also a good point of education, if you want to call it that, where, you know, if you just don't get the spot that you're looking for, it is just even a wise thing not to start to chase that next spot. Look for a reset of things, look for another opportunity. We've settled here into a mini sideways consolidation on the 144. Still have a one volume tick, but the F is now backed off a bit, and our 10 minutes are conflicted.
EK upwards, spiking. That 10 erg flashing in and out, the bottom one, from conflicted to both green. Still have the one's volumes turned down, but the volumes are turning. The bottom K just backed off. Tighter range for a few moments.
Not only a few moments, but as I say, we're almost at 50 minutes here. 81.75 now to 86.75, so 5 minutes, close to an hour in that tight range.
Yeah, I just meant the last few candlesticks on the...
No, I know that's what you meant. I'm just saying bigger picture.
Yep.
Even though we have a greater than 10 point range, that is still a reality here at the moment. Overall 11.5 point range, but essentially about a 5 point range.
Where over 2 points for was it 2.25 points, I guess, here for tracking, and gain if you've hit your target for the day. Always a good idea to lock in profits. It's a personal decision.
10 minutes are back to agreeable. You can start to look for, in this case, scalps. The ones and the ones and ticks are down here. Volume starting to turn. 1D, F, slightly downward, so we may see scalp downward. We will have to just pay attention here as the ones and the ticks are near the bottom, even though there's a 1D, almost EF downward. There could be another bit of a turn spot here. We've hit that 84.50, bounce back to 85.75, and could bounce down. Again, it's right against the 3-minute, 5-minute, and even 10-minute trend line. Our 10s have gone conflicted again.
And this was a bounce spot a few minutes ago. You can see it on the...
Now let's watch for our 5s. We may be starting to show ourselves as a base 5 with a 5A potentially downward. Let's watch. Is there a little bit more turn in that top 5 minutes?
Supported by a 1D, E, shorter term.
You know, we may see, as I say, we may see turning these smaller charts upward here first off, but if that 5-minute continues to progress as it is, 10 minutes have gone back to agreement, so 1D, E, need a little bit more turn on that top 5-minute. 1D, E, F, if there is a red arrow on the 144 or 317 price chart. And it's pressing up instead here with the tick starting to potentially turn up. Maybe even that top 1 minute starting to flatten a bit. Still could be pressure downward though. See the E spiking, that's giving us a little bit of pressure upward. Still overall, D, F, red tick, even the 1 minutes are down. Ones are off slightly now, one of the 1 minutes. Even though we've got a D, E, and F downward.
We're holding this, and given that that 2100 is still within a stone's throw, it's in the back of my mind. We've seen this happen where the market looks like it may move down, but emotionally moves up. Starts a run.
One tick has turned green. Flatter 1 minute. D, E, and F still down. Bottom 5 minute good. Top one still slightly off of 45 degrees. B bias is actually nicely down at 45 degrees here. One's slightly off. Still with our DEF downwards, still in this range here for, actually it's crazy, this little range we've been in, basically almost 8-9 minutes, 85.75 to the 84.50. $15 for our 3 minutes to replot, 1 minute for our 10s and 5s. And 10-minute flat, but still agreeable in color at the moment. See what happens to our 3 minutes and our 1 minutes here at the 10:39 mark. 3 minutes went green. One starting to turn, one volume, one tick starting to turn, still D, E, and F downward though. So not a lot of direction here at the moment except for our 5 minutes, which one of them is still a bit shallow. Someone's asking about the stop loss on the ticks, and we are we're doing it at 5 ticks right now, and even if that stop loss lands on a point of support, where normally we've got a demonstrable change at 1040 in both our 10s and 5s, that top one weakened a bit more. Our A bias came in a lot stronger, so we would obviously like to see that top 10 minute come in. We are going to hold that at 5 ticks regardless of whether or not that lands on a point of support. E, F, D downward. No ergodic to pair with that. It's starting to move down. Top 5 minute, not there. So it looks like the market has moved sideways through that 3 minute trend line upward. It's moving sideways through the 5 minute trend line, and it's now tapping on that 10 minute trend line. And for the most part, our smaller charts have been holding even upwards of 10 minutes in that lower range, trying to turn up one's volumes ticks. Nothing on those couple of arrows, or that one arrow in the 144 and 317. Threes are both turning red. And the top 5 minutes just not playing ball here at the moment. We would need to see a pullback. No scalp either. Our volumes have come down. Volume E, but that's about it. You see those ones turn, well, they just started to flatten. That volume turned up, so. Threes may be close to 45. Let's see if these smaller charts, they've been wanting to go through at least an upward turn for over 10 minutes now, and just not doing it in that a bit of a gradual, well, that consolidation sideways there, 85.50, 84.50 range, and then that drop down, all the while volumes ticks particularly trying to turn up. We have a minute until our 5 minutes plot again. Ideally would like to see a change in that top 5 minutes. Actually starting to waver here a little bit, Greg. Did have a pullback in the throes of that. We did have a white arrow in our 144. And there's the volumes and the ticks now starting to turn up a little bit more, causing us to come back to that 84.75.
Tick FL. Maybe short-lived and a bigger 5A going down. But that top 5 erg comes a little closer to the 45 degrees. One of the volumes are joining in, volume E, volume DE, moving up. Let's see how far this goes, or if maybe it's the beginning of a bigger push up to the high again.
At 5 looks like it's back in here now.
Yep, it's here.
So if we can see a red arrow in our 144 or our 317 tick chart. Nice A bias, even B bias as well. Going conflicted on our 10s again, so we are just limited to our base 5s in that scenario. Base 3s, but they're conflicted themselves.
It was a bounce spot the last few times we were down here. A few candlesticks back.
We do have a trend line forming in our 3s, our 144, our 317s downward, which we could stick to here. We are on the against the 10-minute trend line upward. So there is got to be a bit of momentum here to push us through the bottom. Meanwhile, our volumes or ticks are still angled upward.
Got a multi-part question here. Don't know if we can get to it all right now. Just with regards to scalps, we are doing 5 tick stop on our scalps. Friday we had one we pulled back to 8 ticks. It was at a point of resistance. We actually were talking about that afterwards, whether we should be pulling those back or not. And we just did it by habit, given the strong point of resistance we had. Gain
Support.
or support, I should say.
Okay, we have a scalp here coming in upward. And a volume, one volume tick. Let's see if that F can angle in upward. Still have the bigger base 5 downward, so overall we can be either looking at this as a scalp upward, which you're talking about here in terms of scalps, Greg, or just look at this as a pullback, wait for that base 5 red arrow to come in. And I interrupted you there, Greg, but just continue on. See that F starting to spike up. And this could be trying to push through that 85.25, which is the trend line in the 3 and the 144. Certainly we have the F, EK, volume tick. And since we started to see that, we've pushed through now a tick. We started to see that all come together around 84.50. So arguably we might be a little bit advanced in that. 85.75 as a point of resistance. And it's already moved up here about 1.5, really 1.25. Since we started to look for that, though, there is still strong ones of volumes. Ticks, E. See that top 5 minute is backed off slightly. And haven't seen a white arrow. And this is the place where we kind of are making the decision of saying let's look for another sort of minor pullback, even if it's going to continue to move through, since it's up against the 85.75 and has already been on an upward move from 84.50, 84.25 range. The scalps are certainly more risky. You have to be certainly on the spot with them, trying to, and you know, sometimes you're going to have to be a little bit more subjective with them as well, Has it moved too far before looking for an arrow? Is that point of resistance that you're up against going to be, so we have a base 5 here now, again downward. Let's consider this as a pullback. In terms of that, we see our smaller charts, at least the volumes and the ticks have advanced somewhat.
It's interesting that B bias weakened as well as the A on that last 1050 new candlesticks coming in.
Right, it did actually. Still have the one volume tick F upwards, so this actually could continue to press upward as it's held at that level there, several candlesticks in the 144. Interesting, looking at this as a potential bounce point on the 5s downward, or a continued push through with the remainder of what's left in these smaller charts up to that 86.75, and perhaps even further. Greg, you've talked about your 2000 level. There's a
2100.
2100 there. The F was not there on that white arrow. Did have the one volume tick though. There's the D starting to spike again. So again, the scalps are certainly more risky. You're looking for one tick or even two ticks if the market is broader and there's more volume. Two tick target is something that could be considered in that scenario. But even on the one tick basis, as someone's pointing out, you know, you're going to have to win 5 of 6 trades to be break even, and that's not considering your commission rates. So it has to be something that you make the decision of. Sometimes people like the scalps better. They can see them, understand them, read them better, recognize them better. The more conservative view certainly would be to consider those scalps as pullbacks in relation to something bigger. In this case, we have a base 5. Even though, as you mentioned, Greg, the A is weakened slightly, it looks like it's starting to flatten on the tip of that A right now. Certainly would need to see the market come down a bit to recapture some of that angle on the A bias. But looking at scalps as pullbacks for those bigger base setups is certainly a conservative thing to do. So, you know, excellent observation, and you're right on the money. Those are considerations that you do have to weigh in, and even within the scalps, I mentioned earlier about you know, where the scalps have moved, or the market has moved in the direction that you're looking without seeing an arrow. We've often said moving a point or 5 ticks. We talk about that in our bigger base setups, but I've applied that in our scalps, and you know, that may even be too far. Maybe you want to see an arrow within 2 or 3 ticks of where you're looking for that arrow to be, or if the market's up against a point of resistance, to just forget about that one completely. Only look for scalps that come in between points of resistance and support, minor points of resistance and support. Go ahead, Greg.
5A, very close, and EK coming to support it down with the FL backed off. Ones are turned down to support this as well.
Ones, even the 3s. See the volumes and the ticks turning. So this could be our move down. In that A, well, 3-1, 5-3 looks like it's actually here now with that B bias. Sorry, C bias. Even 3-1 with the D. So if there is a red arrow, nice red arrow on the 3-minute price chart. Not something that we look at, but interesting that we see that there.
Shorter term EF is spiking up. Let's see if this is just a temporary spike before a move down. Certainly nice to see multiple charts line up in a particular direction. Again, in the back of my mind, I've seen this pattern before where it makes a push down, then shoots right back up to this 2100.
Mm-hmm. And just sort of, I'm seeing the last part of that question in terms of the record keeping the last while. Well, you know, Honestly, the last, or since late spring, really the market has been operating very uncharacteristically. 3-1 still there. Our top 5 has come off slightly. 3-1 still there downward with the C and the D agreeable.
Nice E bias. EK down.
We actually did have some good tracking throughout the summer in the scalps, and particularly when we made the F in addition, and
just added some extra filtering.
Yeah, and then more recently, still looking for a red arrow on a 3-1. Conflicted tens, so can't look at any scalp. Market picking up a little bit of steam here, but dropped through that 84.75 without seeing any red arrow. In the last several weeks, we've really gone to the 4 components and then even added the F in with that or in addition to that. And we've started to do that because basically the month of October really didn't operate well on the scalps. We had been looking at, because there was a lot of bouncing around and ultimately it would move in the direction we wanted, we had taken the approach of a 8-tick stop, but in the last couple of weeks that 8-tick stop has come back to hurt us. We're still in our 84 now, sort of forming that as a point of resistance on our 144 chart. Again, 3-1 volume tick. The conflicted tens mean the scalps are not there, but 3-1. Even that 5-3, the 5 has come back a bit again as well. So settled into a little bit of a consolidation here on our 144. 84.75, where we started to see that setup present itself. So still able, on the basis of about a point and a tick of movement, still able to look for that red arrow here within a couple or a few more ticks, even considering this as a new consolidation, as a pullback, and even look for that below that. But our 83.50 coming up against that right now, which has been a bigger point of resistance. Interesting, in our 317, just 10 candlesticks earlier, we see 83.50, but that was at 10:40, so that's almost 18 minutes ago. There's a red arrow that came in. Need to play this tight here, and basically on this 5-3, just because we are in that outer limits of our point and a quarter movement from where we wanted to see that arrow, so right on the 1 point level, and we have to be particular with our 83.50 here as well. Again, this is one of those ones personally that you may want to filter. Losing the 5 here, so just having to exit there, and had to exit Greg at 6 ticks down with the loss of that 5. So it looks like our smaller charts are starting to turn around here, even though they were angled down sharply. Still have the 5-3, that's come right back in again. So if we do see that again on a red arrow, that bottom 5 or top 5 minute coming in and out in this tighter range. So I think I was in the midst of all of that, talking about the scalps and whatnot. But so that's the approach there with our scalps. Then we've now come to return to our 5 ticks as a stop, which we had as a norm before, but had expanded that to 8 ticks in the course of the summer because we saw the market bounce around and take us out oftentimes at the 5 ticks, but would have been fine with an 8-tick stop, and then we see sort of a return of that now. That if it moves past the 5 ticks, it's actually going to hit the 8 ticks, and that's why we've migrated back and tried to tighten it up a little bit more here with some of the other observations, at least in terms of proximity of points of resistance, and even tightening up a little bit on how far the markets move before we look for a particular arrow instead of the point a tick or so, scaling that down even to 2 or 3 ticks. So
11 o'clock, that top 5 erg went radically conflicted. A bias angled up sharply.
yeah, and our 3 minutes turned as well.
So we're still in this tighter range. Then a stone's throw of the high of our day. Maybe pressing back up here at some point.
And another observation, Greg, just take a look at where we've been in here at the top of this range. Like even if we look at the 945 mark, we've been 81.75 to our 86.75, so 5-point range. But even since about 10:30 last half hour, it's been 83.50 to 86.75, so 3.25-point range. So it is a tight morning. Apart from that open flurry, it looks like, from the low of 75.25 in the first 15 minutes up to the 83, 84 level. And as you say, conflicted 10s, conflicted 5s, flat 3 means there is nothing here at the moment. Even if there are some scalp patterns that come in upward with those 10s conflicted at present, we're just not considering those with conflicted 10s.
Conflicted 10, 5s, 3s are flashing in and out of conflict. 10s, of course, are at the top of their range. 5s in the middle, 3s at the bottom. Interesting, 1s and volumes kind of angling up, but D&E biases wrangle down. Conflicted ticks.
But for an hour, 10 minutes an hour coming in out of conflict, but it was presenting as a nice scalp move with the ones, the volumes, the D, the E, the F, all coming in there. And of course, our 10 minutes only came out of conflict as it started to move, and we're not able to really look at that in terms of a chasing kind of thing, though it looks like anything would have worked there in retrospect. But we're right up to that 88.50 now, which is the high of Friday afternoon. And we will need to see a pullback here, but you could see that building, Greg. Just I was keeping my eye on that 10-minute ergotics, and they just didn't come out of conflict until it had pushed through even the 86.75.
Those are the kinds of moves that we oftentimes talk about, breaking out of a consolidation zone. And this was a bigger move. Moved up, what, 3-4 points very quickly?
Yeah. One's flashing in and out. 1D, 1C potentially there. A little bit of sideways consolidation. We haven't had that flurry of activity even all morning. That's the fastest the markets move there in terms of number of trades. You can see we had several candlesticks in very short time frame on our 317 versus the 40 odd minutes that we see time reflected in the previous plottings there on the 317. It's quite a difference there. Volumes down, E down. CR5 starting to turn. Nice B bias up and just not getting things to pair and match up here. Did extend our hour range at the time that we've been on from the 81.75 to 82.25, so 6.5 points of range now for our session time. There's about 13 points overall on the day. Here we have a scalp coming in downward. If we see a red arrow on the 144, 317, we have the ones, the volumes, the ticks, the E, the F, the C, and markets just moved ahead here already. We would have wanted to see that a bit ago, coming up against the 317 and the 144 trend line. Still strong information in the ones, the volumes, the ticks. And the market has moved from 87.50 right down to that trend line. Similar scenario that we faced, though it was a base 5 that last time in the attempt as it came down to the 83.50. Tens and fives out of conflict, both green. A and B both changed. Threes trying to turn green, which could cause a bit of a move upward here again. Another attempt through that 88.50 level. Still have the one tick D, F, sideways here. We're right against that trend line. This is one of those scenarios that I did mention about scalps, any setup really, but scalps right against that point of resistance, in this case the trend line. After having advanced already, we've gone sideways here in terms of considering that consolidation as a pullback, but it could also be a bounce point. See the volume starting to turn. Still a 1D tick F downward. So we do have a white arrow on 144, which could give us a pullback scenario for another scalp here downward. Another attack at that tick trend line. 1D tick F. Threes going in and out of red. If there's a red arrow, I would look at this particular scalp. There's a red arrow. And again, these are challenging.
Tapping on our tick. Of course, at a point of resistance like this, we could start to move down quickly. There we got our tick.
Feel the tick there.
But again, at a point of resistance could be a bounce spot as well. We didn't have any other larger trade to transition to. Starting to still a 1D. Conflicted 10s now. Top 10 has gone red. Conflicted 5s as well. So just be patient. Wait for the market to move out of this zone. Get some more longer term trending.
Tens are conflicted. I'm not sure if you mentioned that now again. So we have potentially the threes starting to turn up. That would keep us in line with the 10-minute trend line, which we still are holding the upward trend line. And it may time well with the ones turning up behind the volumes and the ticks. So let's see if anything transpires on that front. At the moment, we still have the ones down, D, thicker red in the E and the F, but of course conflicted tens. So
Still in this consolidation zone. Conflicted tens and fives. Again, waiting for something to the market move out of the zone. A nice C bias down, nothing to pair with it. Volumes and ticks starting to turn up, but deeper E and F biases holding. We are starting to push out of our zone.
just as our ticks turn up with the volumes, you may see our ones do the same thing here, and our threes follow in behind it. But yes, we do have deeper red biases. A and B are green, but that will maybe hold things off until we see more momentum kick in upwards on those, on a turn in those biases. Moving down further, still 10 minutes conflicted. See, the ones actually turned down at the bottom, sharp red, as the volumes turned, and had a resurge downward in that E bias. Of course, the C as well. And that did move us down here in this range. This may move us down to that 83.50 again, and actually may move through as well. Still conflicted 10s and 5s. We're back into that zone of a tighter range. We have a zone here of 86 to 83.50, which we're back in the middle of. Did have a move up in that sharp flurry of activity, relatively speaking, up to the 825, but have gradually come back down over the course of 15 minutes to where we are now, back in this range again. And 5s are conflicted, doesn't give us anything in a 10-minute conflicted environment, and those 3s are really just, at the moment, still flat. Did see the attempted move up in the 1s. They flashed down again, dropped down from the 86 to where we are now. Could see them turn up again, and then see a real change in those 3s and some of those biases. So let's see what happens if that matches up in and around that horizontal support level of 83.50, 83.75. And if we get 3 minutes that come together and produce nice ergodics, we may see an opportunity upward. Probably will not see any change in our 10 minutes until the bottom of the hour, though that flat 10-minute or flat green one could go to red if there's any further movement downward. Let's see what happens here. There's our 1 starting to turn up. There's our volumes. There's the E starting to climb with a K attack.
K backed off.
Yeah, but
L backed off.
Just want to see these things sort of begin to mount and have a little bit of movement up that turns our 3 minutes. We've got 35 seconds until our 3 minutes replot. And we could see that base 3 begin to come in, 86 as a point of resistance. So 1124 gave us certainly a stronger bottom ergodic in the 3 minute, close on the top 3 minute, but the C bias actually just went deeper red, stronger angled red. So not a whole lot of clarity.
Certainly do like those ergs, as you were mentioning a few minutes ago, the 3s, 1s, volumes, and ticks. Like the volume, the biases that come in and support that for a possible move up as we stay in this shorter term consolidation zone, which is similar to the zone we've been in going back to before 1030. You can see that very nicely on the 3 minute price chart, apart from that spike above 86 up to 88.25. Starting to push up to our top of this range, which is our tick trend line. E is coming in now. 1 volume E tick, apart from those conflicted 10s. Let's see if this does manage to push through this 86. The actual S&P is around 2092, 8 points off the 2100. C is starting to weaken a bit. It was stronger a few moments ago. Volume EK tick, one volume EK tick. Gain conflicted tens, holding the 86. It's very slow right now. Question here about possible 3C. Any of our setups, the ergs and biases need to be in the same direction. So in this case, the 3s are angled up, 1s are angled up, but C is actually angled down. We need a bias. You may have mistyped that. And actually, for a good part of the last few months, whenever the 10s were conflicted, we weren't considering, we're only considering base 5 trades. Last week, actually, the last day or two, we're starting to consider base 3 trades as well. We've noticed that over the last while, even with conflicted 10s, base 3s would actually pay off.
We actually are coming close to a 3-1 now. We did have a change in that C bias, slightly angled up here. Market is up against the 86.25, 86.25, which is a point of resistance, and would need to see a pullback if we were to look at something that goes further. Again, those 10 minutes, as you mentioned, are conflicted.
Threes are nicely angled. The 1s are a bit weaker and have a nice E spiking in. Volume E, still conflicted 10s. Just watch, we're still tapping through this 86 to 86.25, which has been a point of resistance.
That 1 has come back here a bit again. So it is a tight range. Even in this a base 3, we can look for a white arrow. Having gone sideways here in our 144 as a consolidation, even in our 317s. But tighter range, I'd look for a lock-in. There's an arrow. I'd look to lock in 2 ticks. In this case at 86.75. You need to watch that C bias immediately flattened here. Still have 1's volumes ticks upward. Still have the 3-1. So let's see if this can continue to move and push up through the 86.25. Did tap on the 86.50. 86.75 is another point of resistance. Again, I'm looking to lock in 2 ticks or even 1 tick here with a 1-point target. on the base 3.
I like that EF coming in. 3-1 volume tick EF. But as you say, that C weakened.
So the D has come in, though, on that last plot, angled up. Nice to see. Need to move through the 86.75. There it did move up, and I'm just going to look to lock in and take the tick. I was a little bit slow clicking on that. If you had to just set it at the tick, it would have filled.
1,600 contracts.
Just filled the one tick there in terms of that lock.
Very nice.
Again, I wanted to lock that. I know it's a base 3, but we've been very tight and up against a point of resistance. And
that 1,600 contracts at 87, and oftentimes we don't talk about that. Sometimes that's a real wall. Sometimes it's a fake. It's a teaser. It's a bluff. Bluff. That's the word I'm looking for.
Still could continue to move. As I say, that point of resistance, the tighter range, relative slowness, was able to. Well, I wasn't able to lock in the tick because it had moved by the time I touched on it there. The ones are starting to fade now as well. So certainly we need to be looking to exit if you're still in with the softening 3-1, maybe a break even. But did record the tick there, Greg, on that lock in on the 3-1.
Well, we don't talk about this very often, but when you get a 3-1, that's closer to the tick side of things, or even a 3D, compared to maybe like a 5-3 or a 3B, which is getting more in the longer term type of trade. So the 3s are always sort of halfway between a scalp and the bigger trades, and certainly nothing wrong with locking in a tick on a trade like this with the point of resistance. And of course, we've lost the setup now, nothing to transition to if one had have held it. Gave it a moment to push through, and it made a push, but didn't push through like it was looking like it could.
Yeah, no, it just touched on that 86.75. You can see it as a point of...
Watch that EK coming down. Again, that conflicted 10s, that bottom 10 may go red in a moment.
Perhaps the 3 minutes went conflicted themselves. 5s are still conflicted. As you say, keep your eyes on the 10s if they do. I think that green one's starting to flash red, right on the tip of it. Let's watch for that to become solid. See the 1s and the volumes and the ticks maybe starting to turn down, so that could line up quite nicely for a scalp downward. One, they're certainly down. 1 FE D. Greg, I think that 10-minute is red, is it?
It's flashing red at the end. It is. Yep.
We're on the 144, 3-minute, 317 upward mini trend line here. Again, still with the 10-minute trend line. So that's going to be a bigger or stronger resistance.
C-buy still stayed rather deep.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting compared to, say, the A, B, or even D bias. Maybe it's just the scale that's on that chart. Red K attack never crossed. It came to meet the green line and backed off here temporarily. Let's see what happens here.
The 1135, that bottom 5-minute plotted upward a little bit more flatter.
Stronger 1C coming down.
1CEF. And I think those 10 minutes are both red. This is one of those scalp scenarios that... See our smaller charts coming in behind it.
85.50, point of resistance, bounce spot a few moments ago.
You see a red arrow at the 85.50, as you say. It's a couple of ticks of movement. It is from the 86 level. It is a point of resistance. See the C sharp 1s, EF. and the volume and the tick coming in behind it.
A and B both coming into red slightly.
So if we do see a red arrow, now it's right against the 85.50. This scalp is uncomfortable because of that resistance. Then hold off. If all scalps are uncomfortable, hold off.
Practice them.
Practice them. Threes just turned back to green. Interesting, that top.
Strongly too.
Yeah, yeah. Still have the 1 E, F, and C. Still have the 10 minutes red. Have our volumes, volume EK1 CF. And it looks like, at least for the moment, bouncing off of that 85.50 level.
Looks like that bottom 10 is actually green now. It's flashing between green and red.
Yes. Let's wait for that to be clearer there on the 10s.
Never got a red arrow on that scalp setup that came in. See if maybe we push up now. With those threes having gone back sharply upwards, there's no setup to pair with those threes. Just watching that K attack, the L attack, they didn't have a strong cross yet. The red K and L attacks.
Interesting, the E spiking up here. F. Again, the 86.75 was the last bounce, and that was on the 3-1 where we did lock in the tick. Maybe trying to move higher again, keeping ultimately to that 10-minute upward trend line may be what's going on. 3D may be coming in upward here, Greg. If we get a white arrow.
Nice E spike a few moments ago. Actually, not more than a spike, it's holding. EK, F coming in as well. 86.75
D
previous
backing off.
point of resistance.
D backed off. And the C was starting to come into 45, but it's backed off as well.
Holding this consolidation zone.
Yep, holding to it here.
EK down coming in temporarily.
And 30 minutes here since that last red arrow. Interesting. On the 317 price chart. And again, it looks like we're conflicted in our 10s. So we do have the 1, the volume, the tick, E, D all coming down again. But we will need to see unconflicted 10 minutes. It's interesting again, just in a dozen candlesticks on the 317, we've had 30 minutes of activity, so over 30 minutes slightly.
I'm liking this one, volume tick, C, E. That bottom 10 erg would turn red. Of course, we've got to get through the 85.50. That was placed a few moments ago. We had the scalp set up. There was no arrow.
Interesting, since that last white arrow, the first white arrow, we've been 20 minutes in 6 candlesticks. So super low trading volume. We've only had, well, count them up, maybe 7, 8 candlesticks times 317 trades. It's maybe 2,400 trades in 20 minutes, 21, 22 minutes.
Is it 21 or is it more 10 minutes?
Well, 11:16, let's say 11:18. Of course, the scale on the 317 at the bottom, and we're now at 11:40. So
right near that first one's 11:31. Right?
I'm talking since the bounce off the bottom. Oh, the first, yeah,
11:31.
Okay, so 10 minutes or so.
It's still a lot of time. There's low trading in that amount of time.
More clearly, our 10 minutes are conflicted now.
Tapping the 86.75, top of our consolidation range. If we push through here, we did by a tick. Sometimes the market moves and starts to build momentum. Don't have a setup. Conflicted tens, conflicted ones, threes, ones volumes. Just see what happens here. 1,000 contracts at 87. Volumes have turned down here just after that push up. The volume DE even tick. So we're oscillating back and forth in this consolidation zone. We're near the top of it. Let's see how this transpires. C has come in very strong upwards. 3C even. Looking for a white arrow.
Nice C actually has come in. Smaller charts are down. E, F, maybe moving into red.
If we break that point of resistance on the top, we can shoot up to 88.25, possibly push even higher. As you say, those smaller charts are down. I'd like to see them turn. Likely we'll need to see them turn to at least on the tick chart to be able to get a white arrow.
We may still see a white arrow in the 144, despite that. I would like to see the smaller chart or Godex come in. See, the ones might be starting to turn up with that D bias spiking, so that might be
D
nice.
quickly dropped.
There's a white arrow on the 144. And if we see, again, dealing with the how tight we are in this 86.75 level, if we see a 1 or 2 tick possibility to lock in, I will look to do that. I've got a 1-point target at 87.50. There's another smaller point of resistance on the way up there, as well as the 88.25 last high. Holding this level. 5 seconds until our 3 minutes replot, so let's keep an eye in case we lose our 3C. Still in. We lost the D though. Look at that change.
Actually, be another minute for the 3's replot.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
Bottom 3 is weakening slightly. Still have a strong C. You mentioned the D. Shorter term volume tick.
Yeah, they started to come down.
D.
Let's see if there's a resurge upward though. Those ones trying to turn green.
Right at the tick support level, even 85.50 as a support.
Yeah, the E was starting to spike up and then it dropped down again. And we've lost our 3 minute. And just had to take 4 tick loss on that, Greg.
Shorter term volume D, E. Can't do anything with the conflicted tens. Top 10 looks like it's close to turning red. We do have conflicted 10, 5s, and 3s, of course, with that 3 minute replot. Lost that top 3 erg as well, too. This has been a point of resistance. On the way down, we broke through it by a tick. Bigger point of resistance at 64.50, 64.25. Still in this range, right near the bottom. We ticked through the bottom of our consolidation range by a couple of ticks, and we're back at this 85.50. Conflicted 10, 5, 3, 1s. Ones in volume seem to be at the bottom, ready to turn up. Starting to push up to the top of our, towards the top of our consolidation. D has just come in strong. 10s are still conflicted. 5s have gone green, but certainly not a nice sine wave pattern. 3s and 1s are still conflicted. Right down near the bottom of our consolidation zone. Even the extended consolidation zone. E spiking down. Interesting, our D has backed off, but now our E is starting to come up. 1E, still conflicted 10s, still in this consolidation zone, close to EK moving up, nothing to support that. The top one is flattened. Of course, we have conflicted 10s, we'd like to see it come back into proper angle. Sharper EK upwards coming in, right at the tick trend line. EK backed off. Interesting, there was a white arrow on the 144. Well, of course, nothing we could take with that. It'd be interesting if the market does start to push up. Still holding this range. First 15 minutes, even first half hour, we had a couple of nice trades come in. Scalps, a 3D, even a 10B, and very quickly racked up a couple of points. Of course, if you locked in your profit, if that was your profit, and those are trades that you consider taking. Obviously, everyone has different trades they consider taking. Some people just focus with the base 10s or base 10s and 5s. Some do the 10s, 5s, and 3s. Others work on the scalps as well. Even with the 3 and the 10 was a 1.75. Important that you know what your target is for the day. We track every setup that comes along that we see, trying to be objective, but you need to trade the ones that you feel most comfortable with and the ones you've been successful with in demo. DJ down, supported by the E. DJ is not a setup. Nothing to pair with that D. DEJ. Be interesting to see if that's the beginning of something down. Of course, the ones are up strong and volumes at the bottom starting to turn up. Very slow, Darren. Very slow, tight. Market is 8 points. The overall market is 8 points off the 2100. Of course, we're trading the future, so it's trading at a discount to the actual S&P index. We do make a run to the 2100. It'll be interesting what happens there. That can be a hard resistance. If it gets going fast enough there, it can actually almost be like a slingshot where you actually push through it and continue moving higher. Sharp DJ, interesting. C is coming up. Nothing to consider for a setup. We are moving to the top of our consolidation range. 86.25 previously was a point of resistance. Of course, other times we've tapped through there even as high as 87. DJ backed off. Ticks are moving up nicely. Tick, weaker F, L. Coming to within the last 2.5 minutes of our session this morning. Starting to move to the top of this range. Volume tick EK.
Even the F to some degree, but again, our 10 minutes have been conflicted since.
And 5s and 3s and 1s.
Yep,
Wow.
They've been conflicted since about, coming up to 11 o'clock, from what it looks like. And of course, the fives themselves have been conflicted since, well, even before 11, probably 10:45, back when they were both green. It might have been a moment there.
Probably around 11.
Yeah, it might have been a moment there at 11:30 where they were both green, and then more recently both green, but they quickly changed.
So we just wait for better markets. Do you want to, coming up to our last minute here, do you want to tally your...
Yeah, I've done that already.
Okay.
Scalps, we were up 3 ticks. 3D up 1 point. 10B up 3 ticks. 5-3, that one trade that went against us down 1.5. 3-1, we gathered a tick on that. And 3C, most recent trade, down a point. So up 1 tick on the day. And real tight market. As you say, early on, our first 4 trades were up 2.25 points. If you're looking, 1 point or 2 points as your target, you would have had that locked in there. But we continue to track the trades that did present themselves, and even in this tight market, I think ultimately we did a fairly decent job given the type of market we had. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 setup opportunities. So. And in terms of win percentage, we were 6 of 8. Just some of the actual trades that were profitable were smaller trades, and a couple of lost trades had 2.5 points of loss between the two of them. So that's where we stand at the moment, Greg.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. If you are on this afternoon, wait for nice angles on those ergs and biases, as we always talk about. Wait for the arrows to come in as well. Practice on your trading ladder. Darren, thanks for your great commentary here today. See everyone back tomorrow morning. Have a great day. Bye.